Welcome to Fundraising Wells, the Successful Board Service Series, where today we're talking about succession planning for the Board of Directors. Building your board's capacity and culture requires you to ask some thoughtful questions. How are you thinking about succession planning for the board? How are you prospecting for new board members? How are you planning for and preparing future board leaders? How good of a job do you feel the board currently does with onboarding and offboarding or exiting board members? How good of a job do you feel the board currently does with socializing and creating connections with one another? Hopefully, asking yourselves these questions will unveil some answers that will help point you towards things you can be improving in your board building process. But for now, let's move into the board building cycle. There's a few steps we want to highlight here. The first step is to identify. Identify potential board members. But first, identify what are your board's needs? What are the skills, subject matter, or connections we're seeking? What are the sources of prospective board members with the needed traits that we can reach out to? Once we begin identifying viable prospective board members, we can then start the cultivation and engagement process. Step two, we can build relationships with those prospective board members, get them interested and keep them informed. We can provide information about our mission and ecosystem. We can help the board member explore issues facing our organization and the broader sector. Once we've got them engaged and cultivated and ready, we can move to step three, where we make the ask and onboard them. Onboarding new board members to the organization and the board means we must be thorough. We must set them up for success. We must be clear with what the expectations are of our board members, from a personally meaningful gift to a collective board give-get goal to the investment of their talent and time and treasure. All of these are things we should be explicitly clear about. How many meetings a year we hold, how many meetings they must attend. When we make the ask and onboard board members, if we have discovered all of their interests and involved them in committees and task forces and program interaction wherever possible, we start to build really strong engagements with them and provide space for them to build engagements with the broader staff. The more we do this, the more involved, the more connected, the more committed they become to the organization. Once we onboard them, we want to continue educating and evaluating them. So in step four, we're going to be providing information about our mission and the ecosystem, helping the board to explore issues facing your organization and the broader sector. We're going to engage the board in assessing its own performance, collectively and individually. We will continuously do this. Finally, there's step five, to rotate and celebrate. We should all be establishing and using term limits for our boards. We should resist automatic term renewals. We should require action, meaning we should require votes. Even if it's an annual renewal, holding that vote each year is a good idea. And we should have term limits. We should also be thinking about, have the needs or goals changed, and do we have the right members to meet them? We can also recognize victories and progress, and we can appreciate individual contributions. And we should always make room for humor and socializing. Let's dig a little deeper into succession planning for the board by thinking about how we're building our board's diversity. If someone were to make assumptions about our organizational values based on our board composition, what would they be likely to think? This is a good question to ask if you feel that most of your board represents the same demographic. It's especially good to ask if most of your board represents the same demographic, which is a different demographic than the constituents that you serve. Another good question to ask is, how well are we cultivating a deeper understanding of the community or communities that we serve and bringing their perspective, needs, feedback, and priorities into our strategic boardroom discussions? Essentially, do we know everything we need to know? We can go deeper on this with, are we ever at risk of making decisions without fully understanding how these decisions may affect those we serve? So, as you're thinking about building your board, look to this process, ask yourself these questions, and if you still are struggling, we encourage you to always reach out. You can find us at www.fundraisingwell.com. Until then, thank you, and we hope you keep fundraising